Recently, I've been thinking about what we leave as a legacy. My maternal grandfather left numerous paintings, poetry, and memoirs of his war experience. When growing up, I was always around my grandfather, whether he was doing his plein air painting or sitting in his quiet study, suffused with oil paint fumes. As a child, I never really understood the world he created until most recently I began to paint with watercolors. His late self-portrait, hanging in my study, continues to encourage me with warm and muted colors. Every time my hands create the sounds of a stirring brush in a water vessel, my heart travels to his study, filled with warmth and childlike joy. My maternal grandmother left me countless sweet memories of unconditional love. In grade 6, I vividly remember that she showed me a carefully saved blue button from my kindergarten uniform and attached it to her wallet with a string. Taking care of you when you were small was the happiest memory of my life, she told me in Japanese in her kitchen, while gently rubbing the small button that I used to wear every day. Holding back tears, I understood what the button meant to her. It fascinates me that these reconstructed scenes of childhood are not made of oil paints or movies, but of complex ensembles of neurons firing tens of thousands of action potential per second from my retina to my visual cortex and beyond. Our perception of coherent reality is contingent on complex and creative neural ensembles which simultaneously deconstruct and integrate information representing different aspects of sensory input. How is my memory made in the first place and retained even after a half-century? Scientists believe that memories require that we attend to relevant stimuli and sensory experiences called the sensory register process. As memory begins in sensory memory, moves to short-term memory, and eventually moves to long-term memory. While synaptic plasticity is unique and remarkable and still mysterious, our sensory experience, whether sound, touch, sight, smells, or taste, is undoubtedly the vast edifice of memory, both in its creation and its retrieval. One of my earlier sensory experiences is tactile. Needless to say, all Japanese children learn origami, the art of paper folding, from kindergarten. Folding, whether with paper or piece of cloth, is well ingrained in Japanese culture. In my kindergarten, we brought our own lunch every day, wrapped with a square seam fabric called handkerchief, instead of a pre-made lunchbox we see in the West. I remember trying to wrap as tightly as possible to secure the lid of my anodized aluminum lunchbox, which did not have a fastener. And at lunchtime, I loved unknotting and opening handkerchief to see the prints of my favorite anime characters or beautiful flower patterns while using it as a lunch mat, as we were taught. We take the art of folding with us everywhere we go, but we are not fully aware of how we humans evolved together the folding challenges as an answers to real-world problems. As we now see in the recent development in mathematics, engineering, and astronomy, origami is more than just a child's play. Albert Einstein said, "A new idea comes suddenly and in a rather intuitive way. But intuition is nothing but the outcomes of earlier intellectual experience." I think origami is a perfect example of how we give form to mathematical insight, artistically and otherwise. What else can origami give form to? Memory is the reactivation of a specific group of neurons Scientifically speaking, in everyday context, remembering something precious, deeply personal and intimate is part of the joy in our lives. Research has found that combining spoken words and images enhances our memory. How well we remember an abstract concept can be improved by employing concrete examples or stories. After forming a memory, we need to consolidate it to make it last longer. This is easier when there is a context to the information being learned. This is why memory aids are useful. When the stories are recited and visualized, the associations are strengthened, the neural pathways formed by synaptic plasticity. A personal story presented with images contextualizes the memory and enhances its meaning. This is a folding book I made a decade ago when my daughter Maya turned 4 years old. At the Montessori preschool in Manhattan where I sent my daughter, there was a freestyle show and tell time on your birthday. All students sat in a large circle, and in the center there was a symbol of sun, pretending the whole room was a solar system. The birthday kids had to bring something special, hold it to their chest, and quietly complete the trip around the sun for the number of years they lived on Earth. As a first-time mother, I wanted to make something very special for that occasion. For inspiration, I turned to paper folding, a familiar subject, as a medium for the visual aid of Maya's presentation. I wanted to make something interactive in which she could somehow meaningfully correspond to her 4 wraps around the sun. I don't know how this idea came about, but after some brainstorming, I decided to make a hybrid of accordion book and a scroll like this so that she could unfold 1 page at a time while extending the book with every turn. And there was even a surprise feature in the last page. I added a butterfly coming out, wishing her to flourish. Once the main idea came to mind, the rest was fun and easy. I collaboratively put the content together with Maya, who helped me by cutting out the photos and papers and adding her stickers on the book. I still vividly remember how passionately she presented the folding book in front of her peers on her 4th birthday. Over the past decade, this folding book has become a timeless treasure and a constant source of joy and inspiration. A piece of paper keeping precious memories alive in the fold, literally and figuratively. I read somewhere that novelty ensures durability when it comes to memory. So does the emotional value attributed to the material. While creating memories is the result of certain connections or synapses of the cerebral cortex, what makes memory memorable is the action of making it extraordinary by using all of our senses. Some of my extraordinary memories come from the many years I spent hosting culture salons at my home, starting in 2010. Like the French salons of the 17th century or Gertrude Stein's Paris salon of the early 20th century, people from all walks of life came to share stories in unique ways. Sharing a story and using it to connect us across cultures and generations seems worthy and righteous to me. One unexpected event occurred when I found myself creating a non-profit organization, the Vancouver Arts Colloquium Society. I had no professional training in the arts nor non-profit management, and my education, a PhD and postdoctoral training in cancer epidemiology and public health, seems to have uncertain value in my new career. I was relying on blind faith and the strong support of friends who are local artists. However, I began to see links between art and science. Both rely on creativity, intuitive understanding, problem solving, reflection, and ability to acquire skills as the needs arises. This has been the central premise of the interdisciplinary work I do with the community. But my most pressing question, the one that I've been pondering for a long time, is how we come to identify with and distinguish ourselves from our interconnected communities. And beneath this question lies a personal quest. As an immigrant in North America from Japan, I have been rediscovering the culture of my youth and reshaping my Japanese identity along the way. I am now realizing that the key to this identifying and distinguishing lies in the development of a personal roots that allow us to express, contextualize, and reinvent identity. I am embracing my freedom to reinvent myself in the context of authentic Japanese roots in this flawed time of uncharted challenges. In a sense, I am repairing and rerouting my fragmented, transplanted self. And this is a story I want to leave as a legacy. Even as I speak this, the COVID-19 pandemic is keeping many of us indoors. In response, the Vancouver Arts Colloquium Society has initiated a visual storytelling project called MemoryGami as a way to give form and new life to our memories and at the same time to connect older adults with youth. After all, relationships are what makes a community and what eventually become some of the real synaptic plasticity we can see in the fold.